stunden. Så ni ska vara hjärtligt välkomna till oss den här 6 december aftonen med Nanna Aida Svendsen. Och ni som lyssnar, ni får gärna vara delaktiga. Men Nanna och jag kommer att ha ett samtal först och sen får ni antingen skriva frågor i chatten eller om ni vill vara med i samtalet efteråt. Så att sluta er nu bara bakåt och känna att det så här ska bli en mysig stund. Så ska vi släppa in Nanna här. Hjärtligt välkommen Nanna. Och det här kommer ske på engelska. Men jag lovar er, det är lättsam engelska. Och skulle det vara någonting så bara skriv i chatten om det är någonting ni inte förstår. Very, very welcome Nanna. I'm so grateful that you want to speak to me tonight about life and poetry and love and relationships and yes, you know, the deep questions. So you are welcome and please tell me something about you.
Well, first of all, big thank you to you, Yvonne, for inviting me to have this conversation with you. And thank you to everybody who's come to join us, which is really, really touching to my heart. And I'm just going to be really cheeky and say these are 2 of the books Yvonne has published of my poetry. The Touch of Nordic Light, which is all in English, and this one, Cherishing the Soul in Trying Times. And that has 22 poems, one of them in English, and then that poem translated into Swedish. And we have Miriam with us, and I just want to acknowledge Miriam Herman because she's the lady who did the exquisite translations in here. Though I realize that this recording is also going out on the English Facebook page, so we might not read a poem in Swedish because of that, we'll see. But anyway, so I just needed to go. Brilliant, brilliant Christmas presents. And I feel very blessed, Yvonne, as always, by our working together, by all of your support and your encouragement to me and to all of your authors. And so I want to start out by saying a big thank you. And I've been a writer almost all my life. I started when I was a teenager and couldn't make sense of things. I would write my diary, my thing, and then I would make little cartoons about life to help me understand and make sense. And there's always been this deep desire in me for understanding and also for the inner life. I'm an introvert, which means that I get energy from the inner life more than from the outer life. It doesn't mean that I don't want connection. I do, we all need it. But it means that the inner life is a great source of resource for me. And that's very convenient as a poet, because then I can write both about the inner life and then about the relationship between the inner and the outer. And I do feel blessed that you've invited me to be with you today, Yvonne. And I noticed earlier on, I was thinking, God, what on earth am I going to say? What on earth do I have to say on this where I am? I know some of you have snow, but where I am, there's not a flake. It's grey. It's cold, but it's grey. And then I started thinking about that we would come together, and I started to think about the gift and the treat of everyone who's joining us today, and just felt such a sense of invitation to be present and to share and to receive. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately is how important it is to feel invited. I think that I notice for me, you can see if any of you have that experience, that when I feel a genuine invitation in somebody else to either listen deeply to them or to share deeply, that brings me alive. And I can discover and find things to say that I would not discover. I'm sure I'm going to say things in the next while whilst we're together that I would not have said if I was here at home and going to watch Rapport, which is the Swedish news program in half an hour. You know, so that whole notion of a genuine invitation, I think is really important. And it's something I think to think of with people that we meet and with ourselves. Are we creating a good invitation for ourselves to share, connect, and be present? Are we creating that for other people? Or are we inadvertently blocking them, shaming them, not inviting them, distancing? And that's all right to do too, because you don't necessarily want to connect deeply with everybody. But it's something to be alert to know that part of the response that you receive in life depends on the invitation that you put out there in terms of the spaciousness that you're willing to offer somebody else. So that's just a thought. You can see if that tallies with your experience or not. I believe, Yvonne, you had some questions for me.
A lot of questions, Nanna.
A lot of questions.
But first of all, I will tell you, as your poetry is amazing. You are somehow, with your words, how you put them together, it's making such a deep sentence for us who reads your poetry. And it's like you are fetching us into ourselves' depth. I don't know if you say like that in English, but you are really fetching us to find ourselves inside us. And your words, I love them. But of course, I want to know, what is it about being a writer and you as a poet that draws you?
Well, I think there is this quest for understanding, and there is this quest for going deeper. And one of the things I heard, I've heard it said that when you write prose, you're describing something. When you're writing poetry, you're writing about the essence of that thing. And I've always been interested in the essence of things. And when I was about 18, I came across an American poet called E.E. Cummings. No idea if any of you have heard of him. And I'm going to read you a little bit of E.E. Cummings, because he has a piece of writing called A Poet's Advice. And I just feel as though I really resonated with this. I couldn't live it. I didn't start writing poetry for many, many years, actually. But the context of this really resonated with me. So do you mind if I just read you a little E. Cummings?
Please do.
And this is The Poet's Advice. I've got to have my flashlight because where I'm sitting, it's not very light. So I can't read the text without my flashlight. A Poet's Advice. A poet is somebody who feels. A poet is somebody who feels and who expresses his feelings through words. This might sound easy, it isn't. A lot of people think or believe or know they feel, but that's thinking or believing or knowing, not feeling. And poetry is feeling, not knowing or believing or thinking. Almost anyone can learn to think or believe or know, but not a single being can be taught how to feel. Why? Because whenever you think or you believe or you know, you are a lot of other people. But the moment you feel, you are nobody but yourself. To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle any human being can fight and never stop fighting. Does this sound dismal? It isn't. It's the most wonderful life on earth, or so I feel. And I agree with that. I agree that the poetry is, it is using words, but it's languaging the feeling experience. And the other thing in here that really resonates with me is this idea of being nobody but yourself. And one of the poems that I wrote a while ago, but it's been with me again recently, because these are difficult times. I don't know if you agree, but I think they're quite difficult times. And we've got all the COVID pressure, which has not really let up yet. And we have a lot of the environmental pressures and a lot of questions about how now we're going to live our lives. And I have a view, which may or may not be correct, but I found myself asking, in the sense, in depth psychology and in Jungian psychology, there's a way of interacting with the life and with the world, so everything were a dream. And so I thought, okay, if my dream was saying COVID wasn't over yet, what would that be trying to tell me? And I would have the feeling that COVID isn't over yet because we haven't yet learned everything we need to learn from it. And I've been asking myself personally, what do I still need to learn? What haven't I integrated, realized throughout this time of lockdown and everything else? And what collectively have we not realized? And I have a sense that we haven't really gone deeply enough. And I have a sense that we haven't really gone deeply enough into ourselves to really find and draw on our own deeper inner wisdom. And one of the books that Yvonne recently brought out was called The Intuitive. And it's an anthology with 13 different writers writing about what does it mean to find and follow your intuition. And I was blessed to be one of the contributors to that. And I feel as though these times are calling us in ways that we may not have experienced before to truly feel into, find your feelings, feel into what is your heart telling you? What is your intuition telling you that's right? You know, there's a tremendous amount of propaganda all the time of what we're supposed to do. And we need to go deeper than that. You need to go in and see what deeply feels right for me. Where does my self-compassion take me? And also with that, having the spacious to allow other people to find and follow what's right for them, which may not be the same as what's right for us. So I do feel one of the learnings in this polarized time is, how can we allow diversity? How can we maintain our own deep integrity, but also have space for difference? So one of my poems that's been with me again, it comes up and goes away and comes back again. It's not such a new poem. It's called Take Back Your Life. And is that all right, Yvonne, if I read that? It's a little fierce, maybe. And I will say that part of the process of writing a poem is an invitation, an idea comes. And sometimes I feel as though it's almost like a message. Sometimes I feel as though I'm not even the one that's really writing it, that it's somehow coming from somewhere as an idea that just really wants to be written. And that sometimes it's a statement or a question to me. And I like to think that if something's relevant for me, it might be relevant for somebody else, not everybody, but there may be somebody with whom it would resonate. And so this is Take Back Your Life. The time has come to take back your life. Time has come to take back your life from all those who would not have, that you have it. From those who feel threatened by your wild grace. Those who would have you smaller than you are to meet their needs, or bigger than you are to fulfill their demands. Those who would threaten, scare, or cajole you into a life you do not want. The time has come to take back your life from those places inside you that would seek to diminish or inflate who you are, that would sever your sense of connection to your soul and to the divine, that would refuse to embrace you with mercy in your pain, or acknowledge your blossoming beauty. The time has come to take back your life from all those who would seek to erode, seek to destroy your trust in the tender moments of connection. Erode your trust in vulnerability and love and the unfolding wisdom of existence as it reveals itself to you. Yes, the time has come to take back your life, not as an act of violence, but as a surrender to inner knowing, kindliness, and love. So, take back your life.
Thank you, Nanna. It was the perfect poetry for this time, because it's really are demanding times.
Yeah.
And I can imagine you to find those words that you are putting together like a flow, like a flute. I don't know. Think the name of this English word,
River.
Yeah, river. Yes, thank you. You must need to meditate.
Yes.
You need to be still. You need to philosophing about life. But why is that so important, to being still?
One of the things that I've noticed is that when I'm running around very busy, I don't have the psychic space to receive, to be awake and aware to those sensitive impulses that might want to come. And I do find, I'm not saying never go anywhere, never do anything, but I do find that I need vast chunks of undisturbed time for the muse, if you will, that source of inspiration to arrive. I remember American poet Mary Oliver once saying that if you need to make an invitation to the muse, it's like a lover. Mm. And if the lover doesn't feel that you're going to be faithful, that if you say, I'd like to meet you, and if you don't show up for several times, the muse will go, the lover will leave you. You have to be a trustworthy receptor for the inspiration to come through. And it can be quite difficult to take that stillness, because it's not like as soon as I'm still, yay, here's the poem. Mm. And often one of the things that first has to happen is in the stillness, there's grief. I've had to grieve another round of lockdown, COVID. There've been a number of things that I had to grieve of late, and I needed that stillness in order to listen to the soft voice of the soul. And so this is an old poem of mine, Soft Voice of the Soul, but it says something about that stillness. if I can find it. Here it is. She asked me how to be gentle with herself, how to listen for the soft voice of the soul. This was my reply. Stay with your energy and flow and let yourself go slow. Promise you will cherish your wise and tender heart, affirming what it feels. Cherish your heart and allow yourself to feel what you feel when you feel it. Say something soothing to yourself. Say, I understand. Say, you have been forgiven. Say, I love you. I love you. Do not be afraid of entering the silence, though sometimes this is where your pain will be revealed. Sometimes this is where your pain will be revealed. It's also where your wisdom often resides. This is where the soft voice of your soul may be heard. So stay with your energy and flow. Stay with your energy and flow and let yourself go slow. So that's partly why you need the stillness.
Wow, you have the right words for that. I think we all understand how important it is to be still and to listen to your heart. And I know that the courage to follow the heart is important to you. Can you please say something more about that?
I can say something more about that. But I want to say a bit more about the process of writing and then come to talk about courage to follow the heart. Is that all right?
Of course.
Because it's just an example. Now, the stillness for me can lead to poetry, but it doesn't only have to do that. The stillness can lead to just some kind of level of insight or healing or understanding or an idea for a painting, or if you're having an issue with your work that you're needing to resolve. There are many, many different creative avenues where information can come forward in being still. And I had a go at this just the other day. I wrote a new poem. I was out in the garden, and I am of the temperament, I happen to love snow. Not everybody does. My husband doesn't, but I love it. There's something about that falling snow that creates such a holding and such a magic, and the beauty of that white wonderland. And it's always an inspiration to me. And so far, where I live, we haven't had it. And I noticed that it was making me feel sad. And I was out in the garden and I started to write a poem. I wanted to write a poem. And I wanted to write a bit about, there's a yellow rose in the garden, and it has been tremendous. It's still flowering bright and yellow in all this grey wintertime. And I thought, oh, I want to write about that. And I went for a little walk and I saw, I'm sure many of you have seen that on bushes, on the little twigs, all the little raindrops all lined up. And these were frozen. And I thought, oh, they look like frozen tears. So I thought, oh, I want to write about those. So I went inside and tried to construct a poem, and it really wasn't good. I'm not saying the one I ended up with is good. We'll try it out in a minute. But it really wasn't good. And I thought of Mary Oliver, who said, if a poem is thin, Mary Oliver is an American poet. If a poem is thin, it means that you have not experienced deeply enough what you're trying to write about.
Mm-hmm.
It means your experience of it is thin. So I thought, yeah, this poem is thin. And my experience seems to have been pretty thin. And then the other day, for various reasons, I don't know if any of you have had days like this, but I woke up feeling really kind of sad and grieving people that I love that are not here, grieving things that I've lost, not things, but people, relationships, places. I was really awash with tears, actually. And what to do, but as poet Rumi says, welcome every feeling as a guest to your table, to your house. It's here because it wants you to understand something. So I thought, okay, I'm being visited by tears this morning. I'll let them flow, which I did. And then I could write the poem. The reason I'm saying that in this kind of detail is not so much about the poem, but it is about, I have experienced over and over and over that often there is a round of grief that needs to be cleared before I can go deeply enough into the poem, into resolving a conflict I have with somebody, into maybe coming up with some new idea. It doesn't, I mean, my art form, my form is the poetry, but I really like to invite you to not only think about this as poetry, but think about what arenas in your own life might it apply to? What might you need to be understanding more deeply in order to resolve something? And very often there's a round of grief to be gone through before we can go to that deeper level. Anyway, I could get a poem in the end. May I read it to you?
Please.
That's a simple poem. It's called Yellow Rose. The merest snow bedecks the garden and is fast melting away this bleak December day of endless grey. Droplets hang like frozen tears on twigs and berries of the hawthorn, waiting to soften and fall to the ground. A sense of loss pervades me, a longing for the solace of snow not to come, for that precious invitation to heart and soul that always conjures the imaginative in me. The rose, meanwhile, valiant as ever, stands yellow and bright, proclaiming its beauty, despite the glare. Perhaps I need to be more like that rose, vulnerable, but steadfast and present to life in and around me. So I feel like it's a time of the rose. And I'll share one more poem about the rose. It's not mine, but I think it has an important message. It's 15th century Sufi mystic poet Hafiz. It's called Encouragement of Love. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to the world all its beauty? How did the rose ever open its heart and give to the world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of light, of love against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. And to me, there's an important message there. It is surround yourself, if you can, with people who will offer you encouragement of light and love. Particularly if you're at the beginning of something new, you don't want to expose yourself to shame. You want to expose yourself to encouragement. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that feedback that is constructive can't be useful. It doesn't mean that. But it does mean you need to both offer to others, be alert to it, or receive in yourself the kind of feedback that's not going to cause the heart to close. Boom. Because when it closes, you won't have access to your deeper wisdom, your intuition, your deep knowing, and you won't have access to connectedness to life. So there's a kind of protectiveness you might do. You might say, this situation isn't safe for me. I'm going to protect myself without shutting the heart down to myself. But if you shut the heart down to yourself, you're in deep trouble. And I think that's why often in the process of reopening the heart, it's partly why I'm coming slowly around to your question, partly why it takes courage to follow the heart, is because you may have to deal with what comes up as you start to follow it, the grief of where you've shut it down. And you'll have to deal with that. And also, the other side of this, how did it ever show the world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of love. And you can see if you agree with this. But without the passion of being engaged in something that you love, it's difficult to continue to find the energy for it. And it might be difficult to continue to allow your light to shine, particularly in a world that is not really very welcoming to light. False light, yes, but genuine light, not necessarily very welcome to that. And Yvonne, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I don't want to speak for you, but it has always seemed to me that you are absolutely passionate about the work that you do, and Cillian's Martha.
Yeah.
And you love it.
Yes, I love it.
You love it.
Yes, I love it.
Know that it's not always easy.
No.
And I suggest that without that love, it would be difficult.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
something deep inside that's like a calling, really. This. So I just want to just open to that possibility. What do you love? And it could be anything. It could be baking cakes. It could be holding hands with your beloved, watching the news, because that's a moment of real connection. It doesn't matter. It can be a really big thing. You want to run a publishing company, or you want to paint, or you're a therapist, you want to help people, or you want to be Greta Thunberg and go out and bring awareness about the environment to the world. I mean, it doesn't matter the size of it. What matters is that you find whatever it is that you love, and you treasure it, and you follow it, and you notice when you've lost it. You'll know, because you won't feel very joyful. And then you see, where's it gone? And what needs to happen? Where is my poem? Where is my love too thin? And what do I need to do to deepen into it?
I just have to say, you are such an inspiration for us all to find our inner wisdom and really get the courage to speak out our inner voice. And with your language, you inspire us to receive this courage, and that's so important now. That's so important to be ourselves today and really speak out from our heart, because the world needs us. And this togetherness is so important, where we find each other and see each other's light and also shadows.
Yes.
Because without shadows, there will be no light.
Exactly.
And we have to accept the holiness of ourselves.
Exactly.
And your words are helping us with that. So thank you. And
thank you.
Do you think you have answered my question about the following the heart?
I don't know. I couldn't remember. it. What was the question?
The courage to follow the heart is important to you. Can you say something more about that?
It is crucial. It is back to the E. Cummings. The heart is the center of feelings, really, you could say. The source of our empathy. A messenger from the soul for information about where we need to go. It's a guidance system. And without it, if you just have thinking, I'm not saying thinking is bad, it's useful, but if you only have thinking, it's not deeply enough connected to something profound in you that is also connected to the totality of existence. And courage is a lovely word. It's from the French, cœur, âge, and cœur is heart. Âge is the season of the heart. And it takes courage because where the heart wants to take us does not always immediately agree with where we think we should go to be a successful somebody. You need to see, it needs to be not about becoming something on somebody else's terms. The heart is really interested in you becoming someone as an expression of your own deeper truth and your own deeper knowing. And from that place, you can connect with other hearts. And we can co-create a world that has a very, very different value system because it's based on empathy. It's based on listening. It's based on feeling. It's based on being nobody but ourselves, not in an egoistic way of the defended self that has to be right and make others wrong, but in a much, much deeper and more profound way. The heart will lead us to places that we may not have thought we wanted to go. And so it can be tricky and it can take courage. But I tell you, in my opinion, or here's the opinion, my heartfelt sense of it is that much of the trouble we are in the world is that we don't take time. See, that's back to the stillness. We don't take time to notice how we really feel. We don't take time to notice our impact on somebody else. We don't take time to listen deeply, not just to ourselves, but to one another and to the messages that the divine, that the intuition, that the heart is constantly trying to give us. So it's very important and it's very challenging. And it can be hard. One of the things the heart likes to do is connect. One of the griefs around the COVID has been the limitation that has been on for so many of us in terms of connecting with those that we really love. All right, it's given us a chance to be inward and silent and connect within, but we need one another also. I have a poem a little bit about that, which I might just read.
Please do, please.
It's called Living on the Edge, because I feel we are living on the edge. We're living on the edge of breakthrough and breakdown, actually. And so following the heart again, I would say we either really find our true heartedness and how to connect with and follow that. And if we don't, we're really likely to get ourselves into even greater troubles. It's so easy for the mind to run away with what it thinks of as a good idea. It's so easy for rules and regulations to take the place of the heart. So that's why it takes courage. It's very alive and asks you to stay very connected and alive. This one is Living on the Edge, and you can see if you recognize any of this in yourselves. Many that I talk to speak of being overwhelmed. Many that I talk to speak of being overwhelmed or anxious or concerned. Many speak of needing time for themselves and for creative process, time away from the endless demands from others. And even those of us who've been at home, often if it's been a small apartment with a family, it could drive you crazy. All the family around you all the time needing things of you. Time away from the endless demands or from others who claim a right to your passion and joy. They speak of no longer being able to repeat the old forms, no longer being able to repeat the old forms that created so much suffering. And they speak of a need for heart-to-heart connection, of being called to participate in meaningful ways. Yes, many that I talk to speak of living on the edge at a time when so much seems to be at stake. You can see if any of you recognize any of that.
Yeah, my God. And you are so right on it, because there are intense, demanding times. And I think to write can help you to navigate.
Absolutely.
Have you any advice to someone who wants to write? They don't need to write poetry, they can just write from your heart.
Well, the first and simplest thing is just do it. Now, I find I have a practice. I like to write in my journal every day. And there is a writer who suggests doing morning pages. And what morning pages are that you start the day simply by writing down how you are. And thoughts that you have. Today I'm feeling grumpy. Oh, I'm really annoyed with that person. You know, you don't censor yourself. You just free flow, allow yourself to write down how you feel. And today I'm feeling grateful. I'm so grateful for the house that I live in. Or today I'm so grateful for the invitation to speak with you. Or today I'm so grateful for my friends. And also doing a gratitude list like that can be helpful. And I was listening to, can't remember who it was now, might come back, who said, but also write your not grateful list. So what are you not grateful for? Because it can be sort of, oh, you're supposed to be so grateful for everything, maybe, but you also may have things that you're not grateful for. And the idea is wholeness. I think you mentioned that, Yvonne, wholeness. Let yourself be whole. But the thing that's also, just like in meditation, is that you write all of that down so that you can be a witness to yourself, and not so that you start to propagate a great big story. Oh, that neighbor's annoying me. Oh, now that neighbor has really annoyed me for a long time. That neighbor is really stupid. See, and then you let your story about the neighbor carry you away, rather than notice, I'm annoyed with the neighbor. That's interesting. What's that trying to tell me? Maybe that neighbor is doing something that I do that I don't like inside myself. Or, you know, use it. You can either use it to explore, or you can just name it. You see, one of the things that's very powerful, and if you've tried it, you know. If you haven't tried it, you take it on faith if you want to. The moment something is accurately described, it starts to change. So you need to be writing as accurately as you can about whatever it is. And so maybe it isn't that I'm annoyed with the neighbor, maybe it is I'm upset with not feeling safe to go out and about because of the COVID thing, for example. Maybe it's something else, really. So the morning pages are just not censoring yourself, but also not building up great big stories of justification and shame and blame. Just staying with, witnessing what is. And it's really, really important not to worry about being a good writer. In fact, one of the first things that you might encounter as you start to write is the critic. We all have one. And again, that's just to say, oh, that's interesting. I'm very critical about myself. And you could say, now, where did that come from? Was that my father? Was that somebody in school? What is that voice? And do I really need to follow it? Is it really the deepest truth about myself? So what the writing then becomes is an invitation for inquiry, to go deeper and see what you feel. And some of that might turn into poetry. Some of it might not, might turn into prose. Some of it might turn into something you want to share. Some of it might not. The point is simply to start. If you can't get yourself to start, that's interesting. Why do you want to write? Do you want to prove something to somebody? That usually isn't a very good reason for writing. It's back to what we were talking about before. Something inside you wants you to. And if something inside you wants you to, then and you're not getting to it, might be interesting to say, why am I not getting to it, for example? But it can be really, really healing to do those kind of morning pages or the journal, where you simply allow yourself to be the way you are and to witness it and to let it change as it will naturally, as it is witnessed and given space. It's almost like the stuff that doesn't change, it's the stuff that we deny and won't allow. And even if you don't want to be a writer, doing that kind of journaling can definitely help free up space for other creative things. Some people prefer to draw, and some people like to do drawings rather than write words. Depends what your form is.
So great. Thank you for those suggestions. So please, you who are listening, try to write something early in the morning, and don't be afraid if you write bad stuff, because it has to leave your body, your system, and you can burn it afterwards, and then start to write your gratefulness and what you wish and what you're good on, and so on. The time is running out. I just want to ask you, do you have a last poem for us to read?
Do I have a last poem? Yeah. I'm trying to see, you have to tell me now which one you want, Yvonne. One of them's The Grace of Solitude. It talks about the need of being alone. The other one is A Gentle Luminosity, and it talks about waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, that one I love. Please.
A Gentle Luminosity. With the early morning came the worries and the fears. You can see how many of you know that one, the wolfing hours. With the early morning came the worries and the fears. Round and round went the mind, with its nagging, with its fighting, with its figuring, with its demands, all so distressing and deadening to me. Choose life, said my heart. Choose aliveness in this moment. Softening came to the body, a smile to the face, a gift of gentle luminosity on a dark winter's day in the north.
Thank you, Nanna. Could it be a better end for today?
And I think I would say that, just to complete on that, Choose life, said my heart. The deadened space is usually the mind running without the heart, or an old emotional wound. And the aliveness is the deeper place than that. That is the unwounded heart. So if you can kind of say, choose aliveness, then you can get some liberation just for a moment anyway.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you for all your inspiration and your wisdom. I think we all have grown a lot to this evening. Ni som lyssnar, har ni frågor till Nanna? Ni får gärna ställa dem högt live. På svenska går jättebra, eller om ni skriver dem i chatten. Vi har några minuter kvar, så passa på att ställa frågor till Nanna. Annars så måste jag bara säga att det var en ljuvlig stund att få umgås så här med er. Det är konstigt att det kan bli så djupt och äkta genom etern. Fantastiskt. Och your English are so beautiful, Nanna, so I don't think we have any problem to understand.
Thank you.
Det är inga frågor, så jag tror alla har blivit klokare och har fattat precis vad du har pratat om, Nanna. Så det har nog trillat ner en och annan 10-åring. Då tackar jag så mycket. Jag kommer lägga upp den här filmen på vår engelska Facebook-sida. We are in this together. Och jag vet att vi kommer ha fler sådana här evenemang tillsammans, Nanna. Because I need your poetry in my life.
I need your invitation.
Yeah, thank you. Så ha nu en underbar afton, och skriv, vänner, skriv ur hjärtat för er egen skull. Och hjärtligt tack, Nanna, och alla ni som lyssnar ikväll. Och så önskar jag er alla en trevlig och underbar adventstid innan jul så här. Så syns vi snart igen. Love you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Bye.